Alright, this is a 700 Arctic Cat. I was looking up on YouTube here a while back and I couldn't ever figure out anybody that had just made a snorkel and put on them, and I couldn't find the exhaust I wanted to hear. You know, I always go on YouTube and I research that stuff before I start buying stuff. But I'm going to show you kind of how I made my own snorkel. I didn't bring the belt transmission up, I did the air intake and stuff. I didn't worry about it as much. It's got a plug, you can drain it anyway, and mainly it's for performance anyway. I'm not going to go that deep anyway. But the snorkel, all I lack is putting the plastic back on and gluing it on. I left it off so I could show you. It'll sit right up here. The way it is, the air box on these Arctic Cats comes in through here. This is your stock hose, rubber hose. I cut the rubber hose off and I just made a PVC pipe, painted it black. It's got a 90 here and a couple inches of straight and another 90 that goes straight up. Of course 90 on the top. What I had to do, it's got a bunch of zip ties to hold it there real steady, but I mounted a bolt underneath it, you can't see it, to hold it up a little bit steadier. To get that stock air box out, the big old stock one that it's actually got, the Arctic Cats are made terrible, this model is. It's got two air boxes. It runs through one, and it's got to run through this big old second one. That's where I cut that original one off, and it gets its air through the bottom. Very restrictive. Just by putting a snorkel on it, it felt just a little bit of power difference in, even with it running a little bit leaner probably. But to take that box out, you've got to take practically the rack off. I took all the little bolts off and I raised it up. But you got to take all of them off. You've got to come underneath the fender here and you've got to take a bracket. Take this bracket loose right here with that bolt. You'll have to take all your plastic of your fenders out. And with a bunch of leverage, you can get that box out. That box used to sit right here on top of the radiator. But it'll come out and you can see the PVC that's running through there now. It left a big old hole there. The HMF Optimizer works pretty good. I just installed it. I wanted to show it too. I run it. I'm going to run it up here. They're not waterproof, but I'm going to put it in something to kind of waterproof it. Run it down. They just plug in. I zip tied a bunch. They plug in to your fuel injection. It's real easy. It just plugs in a series. And then I drilled another hole in the frame to mount my ground because I couldn't find one that I felt comfortable doing it with. And then it's got an HMF, the Penland series pipe, and I couldn't ever find hardly anybody that used these things. It's an HMF brand, and it's got the torque converter, you know, for utilities. And the torque converter, of course, all it is like a little sleeve that runs down in it. I don't like the way it sounds, and it don't have any power difference that I could feel with it in there. It makes it a little bit higher pitch sound. I don't like a higher pitch sound. It actually seems a hair bit quieter sounding with it out because it's throatier. I'm going to start it up and I'm going to run it down the road and let you hear it and see how loud it is. It is a pretty loud pipe. I bet if somebody was behind you riding all day, it'd probably get a little bit annoying. It's actually a little louder than I wanted it to be. You don't see any power difference out of doing any of that stuff alone. Besides the snorkel, I did a little bit. But with all three of them, of course, you do. I set my Optimizer with just a pipe that's supposed to be set at 3, 4, 4. And I set it at 3, 4.5, and 5 with the snorkel, and it's got an air filter on it too. But let me crank it up, you can hear it, and I'll ride down the road. The driveway's about probably 200 foot or so. You'll hear me go down the road. would wheelie from stock. The Arctic Cat makes everything so heavy. But it will wheelie a little bit easier with all the stuff work done to it. Like I said, you don't see much of a power difference doing any of the three things by themselves. But by the time I got all three of them on there, and I richened it back up from putting stuff on it, it runs pretty good. If anybody was ever curious to what tires they're looking at, those are 27-inch mud lights and the Super Sport wheels on them. They ride okay. They do awesome in mud, but they're not real comfortable if you don't ride in the mud all the time. Just trail riding, they're a little rough, a little hard to steer. They don't like turning. The back tires don't like turning. They'll tear your yard up just turning in it and everything else. I reckon that's about it. If there's any questions, post a comment. I'll try my best to help in any way.